For more than 2 years, my daughter-in-law insisted that my son was overseas for work. Then one morning at the grocery store, a delivery driver suddenly handed me a package. "Are you James's mother? This is yours now. Open it alone." What was inside that package made my blood boil. It was a Thursday. I remember it because Thursdays are the days I go to the local farmer's market to buy my vegetables for the week. I was carrying my brown tote bag, the same one I have been using for 15 years, and I had just finished haggling 50 cents off a pound of tomatoes when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around and saw a young guy, no more than 25 years old, wearing a courier uniform and holding a medium-sized box in his hands. He was sweating as if he had run to catch up with me. "Mrs. Stella Morris?" he asked, almost out of breath. "Yes, that is me," I replied, surprised. Nobody ever sent me packages. My children never sent me anything, much less since James was supposedly in Dubai. The boy extended the box to me. It was brown cardboard sealed with clear tape, and it felt light. "Are you James Morris's mother?" My heart skipped a beat. "Yes, he is my son. Why did something happen to him?" My hands started to tremble. "I do not know, ma'am. They just told me to hand this to you and to tell you to open it alone." He placed the box in my hands, and before I could ask him who sent it, he had already disappeared into the market crowd. I stood there holding that box as if it were a bomb. People passed by me, pushing carts, shouting prices, haggling, but I could not hear anything. I only felt the weight of that box and an icy fear running down my spine. If this confession is touching your heart, please like this video and subscribe to the channel to continue joining me in life stories like this one. Because what I discovered that day changed everything. I returned to my apartment almost running. I left the vegetables thrown on the kitchen table and locked myself in my bedroom. My hands were shaking so much that it took me 3 attempts to break the tape. When I finally opened the box, the world stopped. There, wrapped in white tissue paper, was the gold watch I gave James the day he graduated as an engineer. A citizen watch with a gold face that cost me $2,000, all my savings from that year. On the back, it had the engraving, "For my James with pride, Mom." My eyes filled with tears. Why was James sending me this? Why now? Then I saw the envelope. It was white, crumpled at the corners, and had my name written in my son's messy handwriting. With trembling hands, I took out the 2 folded sheets of paper. "Mom, if you are reading this, it is because you have already discovered the truth. Forgive me for not having the courage to tell you in person. I am a coward. I always have been. I was never overseas. There was never a contract in Dubai. There were never work trips or international opportunities. It was all a lie. A lie that Valerie built and that I was too weak to deny. I had to sit on the bed because my legs would not hold me. I read and reread those lines, never overseas. 2 years, 2 whole years believing that my son was on the other side of the world, building a future for himself. 2 years living on the crumbs that Valerie gave me on James's behalf. 2 years sleeping in this tiny 2-room apartment while they lived in my house. And it had all been a lie. I kept reading even though every word was a knife. Mom Valerie made me choose. She told me that as long as you were close, our marriage would never work, that you were controlling, that you suffocated me, that we needed space. And I, like the idiot I am, believed her. I believed her when she said it was best for you to go live alone. I believed her when she invented the Dubai story so you would not ask questions. I believed her when she forbade me from video calling you because the signal was bad. But the worst part, Mom, the worst part is that when I finally opened my eyes, it was too late. My vision blurred. I felt something break inside my chest, something I had been holding back for 2 years without knowing it. I took a deep breath, wiped my tears with the back of my hand, and continued reading. A year ago, Valerie kicked me out of the house. Your house. The house you built with Dad. She threw me out like a stranger. And since then, I have been living alone in an apartment in the downtown district. "She lives in your house, Mom, but she does not live alone. There is someone else, a man." The paper crumpled between my fingers. I felt a heat rising up my throat, a mixture of rage and pain, so intense that I had to bite my lip to keep from screaming. Valerie. The perfect daughter-in-law. The one who smiled at me every month when she brought me those miserable $150. The one who showed me photos of her new life while I lived on a Social Security check of barely $800 a month. The one who convinced me to sell her my house, the house where I raised my children, where I mourned my husband's death, where I kept every memory of my life. There she was, living in my home with another man while my son survived in loneliness, and I settled for the leftovers she threw at me like charity. But the letter did not end there. "Mom, forgive me. Forgive me for being a coward. Forgive me for choosing her over you. Forgive me for not defending you when I should have. I am sending you the watch because it is the only thing of value I have left, and I want you to know that never, never did I stop thinking about you. If you decide to look for me, I live in the Ivory Building, apartment 304 Amsterdam Avenue downtown. But I will understand if you do not want to see me. I do not deserve your forgiveness. Your son who failed you, James." I dropped the letter. The silence in my room became deafening. I looked at the gold watch shining on my bed, that watch I gave him with so much pride, representing his achievements, our sacrifices, and in that moment I understood something that froze my blood. Not only had they stolen my house, they had stolen 2 years of life with my son, 2 years I would never get back, 2 years of lies perfectly orchestrated by a woman I trusted, to whom I opened the doors of my home, whom I treated like a daughter. But Valerie had just committed her worst mistake. Because it is one thing to deceive a mother, it is a very different thing to underestimate her. That night I could not sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding James's watch between my hands, watching the hands mark every second of my insomnia. And while the hours passed, my mind traveled 5 years back to the day Valerie Montgomery entered our lives. It was a Sunday in October. James arrived for lunch with a smile I had not seen since he broke up with Lucy, his college girlfriend. "Mom, I want to introduce you to someone special," he told me, and his eyes shone the way only a son's eyes shine when he is in love. Valerie appeared at the door in a wine-colored dress, high heels, and a bouquet of white lilies. "Mrs. Stella, what an honor to finally meet you. James has told me so much about you." Her voice was soft, polite, perfect. She hugged me with a warmth that seemed genuine. She smelled of expensive perfume, the kind they sell in the high-end malls uptown. I, with my apron still on and the smell of pot roast on my hands, felt small in front of her, but I liked her. Oh, I thought I did. During those first months, Valerie was the daughter-in-law every mother desires. She arrived on Sundays with pastries from the best bakery. She helped me wash the dishes without being asked. She praised my cooking. "Mrs. Stella, nobody makes mashed potatoes like you. You have to teach me your secret." James was happy, and I just wanted my son to be happy. Things changed subtly after the first year. Valerie started making casual comments, acting like it was nothing. "Ma'am, have you never thought about selling this house? It is very big for you alone, and with what it is worth, you could buy a nice condo and still have money left over." I laughed. "Sell my house? Never. I raised my children here. I lived here with Rodney before God took him. This house is my life." But Valerie was patient, very patient. The comments continued. "Ma'am, such a big house is a lot of work. At your age, you should be resting, not worrying about gardens and leaks. Oh, what a pity you have to spend so much on maintenance. With that money, you could travel, enjoy your retirement." And little by little, without realizing it, she began planting the seed of doubt in my head. When James announced they were getting married, I cried with happiness. My son, a successful engineer with a beautiful and educated woman. What more could I ask for? Valerie sought me out one afternoon alone while we were drinking coffee in my kitchen. "Mrs. Stella, I have to confess something to you." Her eyes filled with perfectly calculated tears. "James and I want to start a family. We want to give you grandchildren, but we have nowhere to live. The apartment he rents is very small, and I come from a humble family. We do not have savings for a house." She took my hand delicately. "I know it is a lot to ask, but would you consider selling us this house? We would pay you its fair value. And of course, you would live here with us forever. It would be your home just as much as ours. We would be a family under the same roof." I looked into her eyes. She seemed sincere, vulnerable. And I wanted grandchildren. I wanted to see my son put down roots. "How much?" I asked, feeling something move in my stomach. "The appraiser says it is worth $450,000. We would give you that full amount. You could save it, invest it, have security for your future." $450,000. It was a lot of money, more than I had seen together in my life. And I would live with them. I would take care of my future grandchildren. I would be part of their daily life. I signed the papers 3 weeks later. My lawyer, Mr. Franklin, warned me, "Mrs. Stella, think about it carefully. This house is in your name. It is your patrimony. Once you sign, it will no longer be legally yours." "But I am going to live there with them," I explained to him. "He is my son. I trust him." The lawyer shook his head but said nothing more. The wedding was a spectacle. Valerie wanted something memorable. And I, foolish me, wanted to give her that pleasure. I spent $80,000 of what they had paid me for the house, a banquet hall in the suburbs catering for 200 people, a live band, a 5-tier cake, an imported dress for the bride. "Mrs. Stella, you are an angel, the mother I always dreamed of having," Valerie told me while we tasted cakes at the most expensive bakery in the city. James hugged me on the wedding day. "Thank you, Mom, for everything, for giving us this, for receiving her in your house. I mean, in our house." Our house. Those words sounded sweet then, bitter now. The first 6 months of living together were bearable. I cooked, cleaned my room, tried not to get in the way. Valerie was still kind, although I noticed she no longer helped me with the dishes. She no longer arrived with pastries. She no longer asked for my recipes. Small details that I ignored. Then the hints began. "Ma'am, could you cook with a little less spice? It disagrees with me." "Ma'am, could you watch television in your room? James and I want to watch a movie." "Ma'am, could you not invite your friends over on Thursdays? They make too much noise." My house was becoming smaller, and so was I. One night I heard Valerie talking to James in their bedroom. I did not mean to spy, but the walls are thin. "My love, we need our space. Your mom is sweet, but she is always here. We have no privacy. We cannot be ourselves." "Valerie, she is my mother. We promised her she would live with us." I know. But think about it. Would it not be better if she had her own place, a comfortable apartment near here? We would visit her every week. It would be healthier for everyone. My heart raced, but I told myself, they are newlyweds. It is normal for them to want intimacy. I never imagined that conversation was just the beginning, because 3 weeks later, Valerie entered the kitchen with a radiant smile and news that would change everything. "Mrs. Stella, I have wonderful news. James was offered a contract in Dubai. 2 years, $250,000 a year. It is the opportunity of a lifetime." And there, in front of my steaming cup of coffee, she began to weave the biggest lie of my life. Dubai, so far away. Valerie sat in front of me taking my hands with that rehearsed delicacy that I now recognize as pure acting. "I know it is hard, Mrs. Stella. Believe me, it hurts me too. But it is an opportunity we cannot waste. With that money, we could have children, give them a future. You could have the grandchildren you desire so much." James appeared in the kitchen, his briefcase still in his hand. He looked tired. "Mom, I know it is sudden, But Valerie is right. It is a lot of money. In 2 years, we return, and we can buy another property, have stability. 2 years. My voice sounded weaker than I would have liked. But what will I do here alone? And that was when Valerie dropped the hook. "Ma'am, that is exactly what we wanted to talk to you about." She got up and brought a folder she had prepared in the living room. Too prepared. "We have been looking at options. Look, we found beautiful apartments on the south side. One in particular we loved for you." She opened the folder and showed me printed photos. A beige 4-story building with small windows and black bars. It is a second floor, very bright. It has 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen. It is near the subway. And the best part, the rent is only $1,200 a month. Rent. The word hit me. "You want me to go and rent?" "It is temporary, ma'am." James intervened quickly. "Only while we are away. It makes no sense for you to stay here alone in this big house. Besides, we need to close everything up properly. Leave the house secure. You know how the neighborhood is the burglaries." "But this is my house," I whispered. Valerie squeezed my hands tighter. "It was your house, ma'am. Now it is ours. And we want to take care of it, not leave it alone and exposed. Imagine if something happens to you and we are on the other side of the world. We would not forgive ourselves." James knelt in front of me. My son, my boy, looking at me with those eyes that had melted my heart since he was born. "Mom, please understand us. It is only for 2 years. I will visit you at the apartment every time I come back to the States. I will send you money. You will not lack anything." I felt the walls of my own kitchen closing in on me. I wanted to say no. I wanted to scream at them that they were kicking me out of my home. But I looked at James. I saw his hope, his bright future, and "When do you leave?" was the only thing I could ask. "In 3 weeks," Valerie replied, and I could swear I saw a glint of victory in her eyes. But it was so fast that I thought I had imagined it. The next 20 days were a whirlwind. Valerie helped me pack my things. Or rather, she decided what I could take and what I could not. "Ma'am, this armchair is not going to fit in the new apartment. Why don't we leave it here? After all, when we return, you can use it again." The armchair where Rodney proposed to me. "This china set is too big for you alone. 6 plates are enough, don't you think?" The china set my mother inherited to me, 12 full-place settings of French porcelain. The family photos should stay here in the living room. That way the house looks lived in, not abandoned. My photos, the ones from my wedding with Rodney, the ones of baby James, the ones of my parents. Little by little, I was leaving pieces of my life in that house that was no longer mine. On moving day, it rained as if the sky knew what was happening. 2 guys Valerie hired loaded my few boxes into a van. Everything that remained of 67 years of life fit into 8 cardboard boxes. James hugged me at the door. "Sorry, Mom, I promise we will be together again soon." I could not answer him. I had a lump in my throat the size of a fist. The apartment on the south side was exactly what the photos showed. Small, functional, impersonal. The white walls were stained with humidity in the corners. The cold tile floor echoed with every step. The living room window looked out onto a gray wall. I sat on my bed that first night and cried. I cried for my house. I cried for my garden where I grew peppermint and rosemary. I cried for my spacious kitchen where I prepared stew for 20 people. I cried for the stupidity of having signed those papers. But I dried my tears and told myself, it is temporary. James returns in 2 years. How naive I was. The first week I received 3 text messages from James. "Mom, we arrived safely in Dubai. The heat is unbearable, but the work is good. How are you at the apartment? Do you need anything? Sorry for not calling. The time change has me destroyed. Sending you a kiss." Short messages cold without my son's warmth. I tried to video call them 5 times, All 5 times it went to voicemail. Finally, he texted me, "Mom, the signal here is terrible. Just messages is better, okay?" Valerie visited me a month after leaving. She rang the doorbell on a Tuesday afternoon wearing dark glasses and a leather handbag. "Mrs. Stella, I come on behalf of James." She handed me an envelope. "He wants you to not lack anything." Inside were $600 in $20 bills. $600! I looked at the money as if it were a joke. "Valerie, my Social Security is $1,500. With the rent of $1,200, I barely have $300 left to eat for the entire month." "I know, ma'am, I know. But James is just starting over there. There are many setup costs. In a few months, he will be able to send you more." Those few months turned into 2 years of the same thing. $600. Every month. Like charity. And I, like a fool, received them gratefully. Valerie always arrived looking perfect. Manicured nails, salon hair clothes from brands I did not know. She showed me photos on her phone. "Look, ma'am, this is James in his office." A man from behind blurry who could be anyone. "Here we are at a restaurant called Al Mahara. Can you believe it?" Her smiling at an elegant table alone. There was never a clear photo of James, never a video call. "It is just that he is very shy with cameras, ma'am. You know him." And I nodded. Because I wanted to believe. Because I needed to believe that my son was okay, far away building a future. My friends Carmen and Ruth visited me on Thursdays. We drank instant coffee because I could no longer afford the good roast. "Stella, something doesn't add up," Carmen told me one day. "If James earns so well, why does he send you so little?" "He has expenses, Carmen. They are saving for when they return." Ruth frowned. "And why have you never seen him on video call? We are not in the 80s anymore. Everyone does video calls." "The signal is bad there," I repeated like a parrot. But their words planted a seed of doubt that grew every sleepless night. Until one morning at the farmer's market, an unknown delivery man handed me a box, and the seed of doubt turned into a tree of truths that destroyed me. 687 days. That was exactly what I lived in that Southside apartment before receiving the package. 687 days that I counted like a prisoner counts the days of their sentence. Every morning I woke up at 6, not because I had something to do, but because the upstairs neighbor dragged furniture as if they were eternally moving. The roof leaked water when it rained. I put buckets in 3 corners of the living room. The landlord, a greasy guy named Al, told me every time I complained, "Mrs. Stella, for $1,200, I cannot give you the Taj Mahal. If you do not like it, there is a line of people waiting." And I paid. Every damn month on time while I watched my savings disappear like water between my fingers. Of the $450,000 they gave me for my house, barely $100,000 remained. The rest had been swallowed by the wedding, the furniture for the newlyweds, the famous $50,000 loan I gave James to get settled in Dubai, and the daily expenses of surviving on $300 a month after paying rent. $300 for food, gas, electricity, water, transport. Do the math. I stopped buying meat. Chicken became a Sunday luxury. I learned 30 ways to cook beans. Carmen brought me groceries every week because she knew I was buying the cheapest brand, the kind that tastes like cardboard. But the worst was not the hunger of the stomach. It was the hunger of the soul. Valerie arrived every month like a Swiss clock, always on the 10th. Always between 3 and 4 in the afternoon, always with her parade of perfection that rubbed my misery in my face. "Mrs. Stella, how are you?" Kiss on the cheek. Chanel perfume that cost more than my rent. A Michael Kors bag that changed every visit. Gel nails with designs I did not understand, but that screamed money. Good honey here, you know. Me with my blouse from 10 years ago washed so many times that the color was just a memory. She extended the envelope. $600 exactly, always $20 bills, as if she had ironed them. From James. He says he misses you very much. How is my son? Very well, very busy. The project is in its critical phase. He works up to 12 hours a day, but he thinks of you all the time. Lies wrapped in velvet. She sat on my rickety armchair, crossed her legs, clad in designer jeans, and took out her cell phone. Look, ma'am, the photos from this week. And the show began. Here we are at the Marina Mall. See how beautiful it has a musical fountain. Her posing in front of a fountain, alone, always alone. This is the restaurant where we celebrated our anniversary. Exquisite Persian food. A table with candles, a glass of wine. Her hand with a ring. No James. Look at this sunset from our apartment, 23rd floor, ma'am. The view is incredible. An orange sky, a window, no face. And James. I asked every time like a broken record. Oh, ma'am, he is terrible at photos. You know how he is. He says cameras steal the soul. A rehearsed giggle. But he is very handsome. He has gained a little weight with so much Arab food. I nodded, swallowed hard. Squeezed the $600 between my wrinkled fingers. But there was something that did not add up. Many things, actually. The photos always had different backgrounds. Yes, but Valerie wore the same clothes in several of them, as if she had taken them the same day in different places, or worse, as if they were from the internet. James's text messages were strange, cold, generic. Hi, Mom. Everything good over here. How are you? It is very hot. Sending you a hug. Sorry for not writing often. Work absorbs me. Never an I miss you. Never a shared memory. Never a do you remember when? One day I wrote to him, Son, today I made your favorite lentil soup, and I remembered when you were a boy and you ate 3 bowls. Answer, 6 hours later. That's nice, Mom. Take care. That's nice, Mom. My James would have written 3 paragraphs about that soup. He would have told me some anecdote. He would have asked me for the recipe to make it there. That was not my son writing. Carmen and Ruth noticed it before I did, or maybe I did not want to see it. Stella, forgive me, but this smells fishy to me. Ruth told me one Thursday while we drank watery coffee. If James earns $250,000 a year, that is, how much? $20,000 a month. More or less, I murmured, and he sends you $600 a month, that is not even 5% of what he earns. Ruth looked at me fixedly. Where is the rest of the money? They are saving for what, Stella? Carmen put down her cup harder than necessary. That girl comes here with bags that cost more than 6 months of your rent. She has nails that cost $100. She gets her hair done every week. Does that look like someone who is saving? I did not know what to answer, but the straw that broke the camel's back came from where I least expected it. Mrs. Higgins, the gossipy neighbor from the building across from my old house. I ran into her at the market 3 weeks before the package arrived. She was carrying her grocery bags and almost dropped them when she saw me. Oh, Mrs. Stella, what a miracle to see you around here. You don't go by your house anymore, do you? No, Mrs. Higgins, I don't live there anymore. I know. What a shame. Right, you took such good care of it. She came closer, lowering her voice like gossips do when they are about to spill poison. And is your son still overseas? Yes, in Dubai. Mrs. Higgins frowned, looked to the sides, came closer. Oh, ma'am, I don't want to meddle where I'm not called, but I never saw your son at the airport. My blood froze. What do you mean? My friend Lupe works at the airport at the newsstands. When you told me your son was going to Dubai, I asked her to let me know when she saw him pass by to send him greetings from me. But Lupe told me that no James Morris ever passed through immigration that day, nor that month. Maybe your friend didn't. Lupe sees all the international flights, ma'am, all of them, and she swore to me on her children that your James never left the country. The market spun around me. Mrs. Higgins kept talking, but I was no longer listening. Her words were a distant buzz while my brain processed the impossible. James never went to Dubai, so where was my son? That night, I did not eat dinner. I sat on my bed with the open package in front of me and reread James's letter, word for word. Every line was a blow, every confession a knife, but I needed to understand it all. I needed the pieces to fit, even if the picture they formed was a nightmare. Mom Valerie forced me to choose between you and her. I closed my eyes. I saw my son, my James, the boy who hid behind my legs when he was scared, the young man who cried in my arms when his father died. How had it come to this? How had a woman broken him so much? I kept reading the second sheet, the part I hadn't fully processed in my first reading, because the shock was too much. 6 months after the wedding, Valerie began to change. Or maybe she was always like that, and I was too blind to see it. It started with small things. James, your mom has too many opinions about our life. James, your mom interferes in decisions that are only ours. James, as long as she is here, we will never be truly independent. She repeated the same thing every night like a broken record until I started to believe it. Then she invented the Dubai thing. That job didn't even exist, Mom. She invented it all. She made me create a fake email print fake contracts. She forced me to act in front of you as if it were real. If you don't do this, she told me, I will divorce you and tell everyone that you abused me. I will destroy your reputation, your career, everything. And I was a coward. I preferred losing you to facing her. Tears fell on the paper, blurring some words, but it didn't matter. I had already memorized them. When you went to the South Side, I thought things would improve, that Valerie would be happy, that we could be a normal marriage, but everything got worse. She started going out more often. Work meetings, she said, English courses, events with friends. She would come back at 2, 3 in the morning, smelling of alcohol and men's cologne. When I confronted her, she got furious. She screamed at me that I was pathologically jealous, that I was suffocating her just like you suffocated me, that if I continued like this, she was going to leave me with nothing. And then I met Rodney. He arrived one night at the house, your house, Mom, at 11 at night. Valerie introduced him as her partner in a new business. Rodney Stone, 38 years old, $3,000 suit, Rolex watch, shark smile. They sat in the living room to review papers. They told me to go to sleep, that it was boring adult stuff, as if I were a child. That night, I heard laughter, low music, the clinking of wine glasses. The next morning, Rodney was still there, asleep on the sofa. Oh, that's what they wanted me to believe. I squeezed the paper so hard it crumpled. Rodney Stone. That name burned in my memory. A stranger sleeping in my living room in my house while my son was treated like a nuisance. Rodney's visits became frequent, twice a week, then 4. Then he lived there more than I did. One night I confronted them. I told them this wasn't normal, that I wasn't an idiot. Valerie exploded. She screamed things at me I never thought I'd hear from the woman I married. You are useless. You have no ambition. Your mother ruined you. She made you a boy without character. Rodney is more of a man in one day than you in your whole life. Rodney just laughed. He poured himself more whiskey and told me, "Relax, champ. We all know what your place is here." The next day I found my things in boxes by the door. "Get out," Valerie told me. "This house is no longer yours. Go live your loser life far away from me. And don't even think about making a scandal, or I swear to God, I will destroy you." I left Mom like a dog with my 3 boxes of clothes and the watch you gave me. I rented an apartment downtown with the little I had saved. I got a job delivering food on a motorcycle, the same motorcycle you bought me for my 18th birthday. Remember, you said it would make me independent. What irony. I had to stop reading. I got up, walked to the kitchen, drank water straight from the tap because my hands were shaking too much to hold a glass. My son, my James, delivering food on a motorcycle while that viper lived in my house with her lover, while I survived on crumbs, while we all believed the perfect lie of Dubai. I returned to the letter. Only one paragraph was missing. Valerie keeps visiting you, right? She keeps bringing you money. She keeps showing you photos of a life that doesn't exist. I know because I followed her once. I saw you leave your building on the south side. I saw you looking so thin, so tired, and I almost ran to hug you, but I couldn't. Shame paralyzed me. Mom, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I let them kick you out of your own house, that I let them treat you like a beggar, that I abandoned you out of cowardice. But I need you to know the truth. I need you to know that Valerie is robbing you, not just your house, also your dignity. And maybe if you know you can do something I didn't have the courage to do, confront her. I live in the Ivory Building, Amsterdam Avenue, 304, downtown. In case one day you can forgive me. Your son who failed you, James. I dropped the letter and looked at the gold watch on my bed. The hands marked 11:30 at night. Outside, it was raining. The drops hit my window like furious tears, and something inside me broke. It wasn't a silent break. It wasn't resignation. It was something hot, burning, rising from my stomach to my chest. Rage, pure and primitive rage. Valerie had taken my house, my money, 2 years of my life. But the worst, the unforgivable part was that she had taken my son. She had manipulated, humiliated, destroyed him. And then she had used me as her monthly source of money while she lived like a queen in my home with another man. I got up. I searched in my nightstand drawer. I took out the notebook where I wrote down my expenses. And on a blank sheet with a trembling but determined hand, I wrote, Valerie Montgomery. Error number 1 was underestimating me. Error number 2 was touching my son. Error number 3 was believing that a 67-year-old woman is weak. I tore out the page, taped it to my mirror, and looked myself in the eyes. The Stella who had signed papers out of love was gone. The one remaining was a furious mother, and that dear Valerie is the most dangerous thing in the world. The next morning, I woke up with a purpose I hadn't felt in 2 years. It wasn't hope. It was something colder, more calculated. It was determination. My first instinct was to pick up the phone and call James. Scream at him, demand explanations. Run to the house and confront Valerie in front of all the neighbors. Tear out that perfect hair strand by strand. But I stopped myself. Because women like Valerie are experts at flipping stories, at playing the victim, at turning your rage into your condemnation. And I had seen enough soap operas to know that impulsive revenge only benefits the villain. Number. If I was going to face that woman, I needed proof. I needed ammunition. I needed to become something I had never been, a detective. I took an old notebook from my drawer. On the first page, I wrote, Plan, and below with handwriting that became firmer with every word, find James. Verify he is alive and where he really lives. Watch the house. Confirm who lives there. Get evidence photos, witnesses' documents. Only then act. I closed the notebook. I took the $600 Valerie had given me last month. Dirty money, but useful. And I went out into the street with a mission. The Ivory Building on Amsterdam Avenue wasn't difficult to find. It was a mustard-colored 5-story building with small balconies full of hanging clothes and neglected flower pots. Nothing to do with the luxury life in Dubai. I stood on the corner across the street pretending to check my phone. My heart was beating so fast I could feel the pulse in my temples. What if James wasn't there? What if the letter was another lie and yes? Then I saw him. He came out of the building at 10:30 in the morning. He was wearing worn-out jeans, a wrinkled white t-shirt, and a baseball cap. He carried his motorcycle helmet under his arm. I almost screamed his name. I almost ran to hug him. But I stayed petrified because that wasn't my James, or it was but broken, thin with deep dark circles under his eyes that were noticeable from a distance. Shoulders slumped as if he carried the world. He walked without looking at anyone with that defeat in every step that only men who have surrendered to life have. Tears burned my eyes, but I swallowed them. I couldn't break down now. I followed him. I kept my distance, hiding behind newsstands, behind ladies with strollers, behind poles. I felt ridiculous, a 67-year-old woman playing spy, but it worked. James walked 3 blocks to a small parking lot where several motorcycles were parked. He took keys out of his pocket. He opened the padlock of a red motorcycle with delivery app stickers. The same motorcycle I bought him when he turned 18. The one I paid for in 12 monthly installments that cost me 2 extra jobs. He put on the helmet, started the engine, and drove off. I stood there watching my son disappear into the city traffic to deliver tacos and sandwiches to strangers. The son for whom I paid a full university tuition. The engineer who graduated with honors. The boy who swore he would make me proud reduced to this because of a woman who devoured him whole. I returned to my apartment with trembling legs, but I didn't cry. Not anymore. Tears were a luxury I couldn't afford. I needed to think. That night, I called Carmen. "Friend, I need a favor. A big one." Carmen arrived at my apartment with Ruth 20 minutes later. I told them everything: the letter, the package Dubai that never existed, James delivering food, Valerie with a lover in my house. Carmen took my hands. "Child, we have to go to the police. This is fraud." "Not yet," I said, surprising myself with how firm my voice sounded. "First, I need to see with my own eyes what is happening in that house. Who is this Rodney? What are they doing?" Ruth frowned. "And how do you plan to get in? Valerie would recognize you instantly." That was when it occurred to me. I am not going in alone. We are going in, the 3 of us, as saleswomen. Carmen laughed. Saleswomen of what? Cosmetics, cleaning products, whatever. People always open the door to saleswomen if they are 3 harmless old ladies. A bitter smile appeared on my lips. Nobody suspects 3 old ladies. Ruth shook her head, but she was smiling. "Are you crazy, Stella?" "No, I am fed up." 2 days later, on Tuesday at 11 in the morning, Carmen, Ruth, and I walked down my old street. Carmen carried a box with cleaning products she bought at the market. Ruth carried a sampler of made-up creams we printed at a stationery store. I carried a notebook and a pen. We all wore simple blouses and discreet skirts. We looked exactly like what we pretended to be saleswomen trying to make a living. My heart beat uncontrollably when we stood in front of my house. My house, the walls. I painted the garden I tended for 30 years. The wooden door Rodney and I installed one Sunday in May. Ruth rang the doorbell. We waited. 30 seconds that seemed like 30 years. The door opened, and there was Valerie. But not the perfect Valerie who visited me every month. This Valerie had loose, messy hair. She was wearing a champagne-colored silk robe that barely covered her knees. No makeup. Barefoot, smelling of expensive perfume mixed with something else. "Yes?" she asked with that tone of annoyance rich people have when they are interrupted. I lowered my gaze. I let Carmen speak. "Good morning, ma'am. We are distributors of eco-friendly cleaning products. Would you have a minute to look at our catalog?" Valerie was about to close the door when a man's voice shouted from inside. "Babe, who is it?" I froze. It was a deep, arrogant voice, a voice I had never heard before but instantly hated. Valerie turned. "Nobody, Rod, just saleswomen." "Well, tell them no, we are busy," the man replied. And then a laugh, an intimate, mocking laugh. Valerie sighed. "Look, ladies, I'm not interested. Have a good day." And she closed the door. We walked to the corner in silence. When we turned and lost sight of the house, Ruth exploded. "That jerk is living there in your house, and she didn't even have the decency to look ashamed." Carmen hugged me. "Friend, you saw it, you confirmed it. Now let's go to the police." But I shook my head, because while we waited at that door, while Valerie spoke with that man she called Rod, while I listened to that obscene laughter coming out of my living room, I saw something else. Behind Valerie in the hallway, I managed to see the bookshelf where I kept the family photos. It was empty. In its place was a modern vase I had never seen, and on the back wall where the wedding portrait of Rodney and me used to hang there was now a horrible abstract painting. They had erased my existence from that house as if I had never lived there, as if 30 years of my life meant nothing. "I am not going to the police yet," I said with a calm voice, "because this is not just fraud, it is war, and in war, friends, you have to know the enemy well before attacking." Carmen and Ruth looked at me with a mixture of worry and admiration, and I knew in that moment that submissive Stella had died at that door. The one who was born was someone much more dangerous. I spent $2,000 hiring a private investigator, $2,000 that I took from my savings, which were melting like ice under the sun. But it was worth every penny. I found Mr. Bernard O'Shea in a classified ad in the newspaper. Discreet investigations, family cases, infidelities, fraud. His office was a small room on the 3rd floor of a building in the business district. Metal desk, 2 folding chairs, a dented filing cabinet, and a fan that squeaked. But when I told him my story, his eyes lit up with that spark men have when they smell injustice. "Mrs. Stella," he told me while taking notes in a worn notebook, "this is not just infidelity. This is dispossession. And if what you tell me is true, that woman committed several crimes. Can you help me? I can get you evidence photos, documents, witnesses, but I need 2 weeks and $2,000 up front." I handed him the money without trembling. It was half of what I had left, but there was no turning back. During those 2 weeks, I lived in a hell of anxiety. Every ring of the phone startled me. Every noise in the hallway put me on alert. I lost 6 pounds. I didn't sleep. Carmen forced me to eat, telling me, "Friend, you need strength for what is coming." Valerie visited me as always on the 10th. She arrived with her perfect smile, her nails freshly painted coral, and her envelope with the usual $600. "Mrs. Stella, how have you been?" She kissed my cheek. Her perfume turned my stomach. I had to bite my tongue, act, smile, receive her charity as always. "Good honey here, you know, surviving." She showed me new photos on her phone. Valerie on a yacht, Valerie on a beach, Valerie with very expensive sunglasses, always alone. "And James?" I asked like a robot. "Working a lot, but happy. He says soon you will be able to visit." Liar. Damn liar. When she left, I vomited in the bathroom, not from sadness, from disgust. Mr. O'Shea called me 13 days later. "Ma'am, we have to meet. I have everything." We met at a coffee shop downtown. O'Shea arrived with a bulging manila folder. He put it on the table with a dry thud. "Prepare your stomach," he warned me. He opened the folder, and my world exploded into pieces. The first photo showed Valerie and Rodney Stone entering a motel together on the outskirts of town. She was wearing dark glasses. He a gray suit. The date in the lower corner, March 18th, 2023. 4 months before the wedding with James. They were already lovers before she married your son, O'Shea said, without emotion. There were more photos, dozens. Valerie and Rodney in expensive restaurants, at the movies, leaving apartments, kissing in a parking lot. The timeline was devastating. All the photos were from before or during the marriage with James. This man, O'Shea pointed to Rodney in a photo where he was getting out of a black BMW. His name is Rodney Stone, 38 years old. He calls himself a real estate entrepreneur, but in reality, he is a professional con artist. He already has 2 prior complaints for real estate fraud. My heart beat so fast I felt dizzy. O'Shea took out more documents. Here is the interesting part. Rodney and Valerie met at a real estate investment course 3 years ago. That was where they planned everything. Planned what? The hit on your son and on you. O'Shea extended printed papers. They were WhatsApp messages between Valerie and Rodney, conversations recovered from a cell phone memory that O'Shea got God knows how. I read, and every word was poison. Valerie already convinced the old lady to sell the house. It's easier to manipulate old ladies than men, LOL, Rodney. How much is it worth, Valerie? $450,000. But the land is worth double. It's a developing zone. In 5 years, it will be worth $1 million easily. Rodney, perfect, babe. Marry the idiot. Get the house from the mom, and in 2 years you divorce. The house stays in your name through community property. Valerie. And if the idiot doesn't sign the divorce, Rodney, you kick him out of the house. You make his life impossible. You accuse him of violence if necessary. I have lawyers who owe me favors. I had to close my eyes, breathe deep, not faint, right there. Keep reading, O'Shea said with a hard voice. Valerie, the old lady, already went to the south side. I give her $600 a month so she doesn't bitch. She thinks James is in Dubai, LOL. Rodney. You are diabolical. I love it. Valerie. Already kicked James out of the house. He cried like a girl. Pathetic. Rodney. And if he talks, if he tells someone, Valerie, he won't talk. He is a coward. Besides, I have him by the balls. O'Shea took out another document. This is the worst part, Mrs. Stella. It was a bank loan contract, a loan for $50,000 in the name of James Morris, signed with his ID, with proof of address of the house, my house. Valerie took out this loan 8 months ago, O'Shea explained. She forged your son's signature. She used documents she had from when they lived together. The bank gave the money without verifying because the papers looked legitimate. But what did she want that money for? O'Shea smiled bitterly. Rodney has debts, lots of them. He owes 3 banks and 2 loan sharks. Valerie used that loan to pay part of those debts. Her plan was simple: extract as much money as possible before divorcing your son, keep the house free of liens through the divorce, and sell it in a few years when it was worth more. And James, they were going to leave James on the street, with a $50,000 loan he has to pay, without a house, without a wife, destroyed. My hands were shaking. Is this enough to report them? More than enough. This is fraud, forgery of documents, dispossession. Valerie can go to jail. Rodney, too. O'Shea closed the folder. He looked at me intently. But I need you to understand something, ma'am. The legal process will be long, painful. You will have to testify. Your son will have to testify. Everything will be aired in public. Are you willing? I thought of James delivering food on that motorcycle. I thought of the 2 years they stole from me. I thought of my house. My home turned into a nest of vipers. I thought of every lie, every humiliation, every dollar that woman snatched from me while she smiled. Mr. O'Shea, I said with a voice I didn't recognize as mine, I am not just willing, I am going to destroy her. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. But first, I needed to talk to my son. The ivory building looked even more depressing at night. The hallway lights flickered. It smelled of reheated food and humidity. I climbed the stairs because the elevator had an out of order sign written in marker. 3rd floor apartment 304. I stood in front of the door with my fist raised, not daring to knock. What was I going to say to him? Hello, son. Did I receive your confession letter? Did I read how they destroyed you and you did nothing? While you delivered tacos, I ate beans to survive. No, none of that worked. I knocked 3 times. Softly, I heard feet dragging. Something fell inside, a curse in a low voice. The door opened, and there was my son. But my God, how far he was from the man who introduced me to Valerie 5 years ago. James had long, unkempt hair, a beard of several days, dark circles so deep they looked like bruises. He was wearing a gray t-shirt full of stains and torn sweatpants. He was barefoot. He smelled of exhaustion. His eyes opened wide when he saw me. Mom! His voice broke on that single word. I didn't answer. I simply walked in, pushed him gently, and closed the door behind me. The apartment was a cave, a single room that served as living room, kitchen, and bedroom, a mattress on the floor with tangled sheets, a 2-burner stove, an old refrigerator making noises like a dying animal, cardboard boxes serving as furniture, clothes thrown everywhere, Dirty dishes piled high in the sink. My son was living worse than a college student. Mom, Mike ran his hands through his hair. I did not expect you. How did you know where? Then he saw that I was holding the letter. Oh, the package. Yes, the package. My voice sounded harder than I intended. Mike let himself fall onto the mattress. He hid his face in his hands. I should have guessed you would open it. I should have. God, Mom, I wanted to tell you another way. What way, Mike, waiting another 2 years, 5 until I died, believing you were in Dubai? He lifted his face. There were tears running down his cheeks. I was afraid that you would hate me, that you would not be able to forgive me. I sat down next to him on that miserable mattress. I felt the springs digging into my back. Tell me everything, and do not leave anything out. And Mike spoke. He told me how Valerie conquered him with perfectly calculated attention, how she investigated everything about our family before she even introduced herself, how she knew from the beginning that I owned that house, that it was worth money, that it was my only asset. She made me feel special, he confessed with a broken voice. After Lucy, after so many disappointments, Valerie made me believe I was the most important man in the world. She told me exactly what I needed to hear. He told me how the comments about me started subtly. Your mom loves you too much. It is cute, but it is not healthy. Your mom still treats you like a child. As long as you live under her shadow, you will never be your own man. And I believed her mom. I swallowed every word because a part of me wanted to believe it. I wanted to be independent. I wanted to prove I could have my own family. His ears burned red when he told me how Valerie convinced him to ask me for the house. She told me it was the only way for you to respect me as an adult, that if I kept living in your house, I would always be your little boy. She made me believe that selling her the house and having you live with us was honoring you, giving you security. $400,000, I murmured. Money I spent on your wedding. On loans you never paid back. On surviving while you two lived like rich people. Mike covered his face again. I know, and I hate myself for it. I took a deep breath. And the Dubai thing, that job never existed. Valerie invented the whole thing. She made fake contracts in Photoshop. She created an email from a non-existent company. She rehearsed me like an actor so I would tell you the right lies. He laughed with bitterness. She even made me practice in front of the mirror how to say goodbye to you without you noticing I was lying. Why, Mike? Why did you agree? Why did she threaten me? His voice dropped to a whisper. She told me that if I did not do it, if we did not get you out of the house with that pretext, she would leave me. And not only that, she threatened to accuse me of domestic violence, to destroy my reputation, to tell everyone I was an abuser. I felt a chill. I never laid a hand on her mom, never. But she made me understand that it did not matter, that people would believe her before me, that a single false report would ruin my engineering career, my entire life. So you preferred to ruin me. Mike sobbed. It was a horrible animal sound. Yes, and I will live with that guilt until I die. He told me about the first months after my departure, how Valerie transformed completely as soon as I left. She no longer cooked. She no longer cleaned. She went out every night and returned at dawn. She spent money on clothes, restaurants, hotels. When I asked her where the money came from, she told me it was savings, but I knew we did not have savings. Then I found the bank statements. Mike stood up, rummaged through his boxes, and pulled out a crumpled folder. He handed it to me. Inside were copies of account statements, transfers, withdrawals, all in Mike's name but with movements he never authorized. Valerie had access to my account because I gave it to her when we got married. Marriage trust, you know. He laughed bitterly. She took out money every week, 500 here, 1,000 there. By the time I realized she had drained almost $10,000. Good Lord. And when I confronted her, when I screamed at her, when I told her I was going to report her, Rod appeared. The way Mike pronounced that name was loaded with so much hate it scared me. Rod is everything I am not. Tall, strong, rich, sure of himself. He walked into the house as if it were his. He poured himself my whiskey. He sat in my armchair, and he told me, looking me straight in the eyes, "Buddy, your wife does not love you anymore. Accept it and leave with dignity." And Valerie. Valerie laughed. She stood next to Rod, caressed his back, and told me, "He is right, Mike. This is not working. I need a real man, not a mama's boy." Mike broke down there. He cried like I had not seen him cry since he was 8 years old and fell off his bicycle. I hugged him because even though I was furious with him, even though he had betrayed me, even though he had chosen that viper over me, he was still my son, my boy, and he was destroyed. They kicked me out that same night, Mom. They put my things in garbage bags. Rod threw a $50 bill at me and said, "For the taxi," as if I were a beggar. We stayed like that, hugging, crying in that miserable room for I do not know how long. When we finally separated, I wiped his tears with my thumb like I did when he was a child. Mike looked at me. He lifted his red eyes. "You made mistakes. Huge, unforgivable mistakes." My voice was firm. "But Valerie manipulated you. She used you, and then she destroyed you. I am not going to allow that." "It is too late, Mom. We already lost everything." "No." A cold smile drew across my lips. "We have not lost. Not yet." I took out the folder that Mr. Davis had given me. I put it in front of him. "Read this, and then you are going to help me do what you should have done 2 years ago." Mike opened the folder. His eyes scanned the photos, the messages, the documents. And on his face I saw something I had not seen in months. Rage. For 3 days I did not leave Mike's apartment. We slept little, ate less, but we worked like never before. We turned that miserable room into our war room. We taped photos to the walls, documents, timelines. We connected everything with red string like detectives in a movie. Every lie, every theft, every betrayal. And as we worked, I saw my son wake up from his lethargy. Mr. Davis visited us on the 3rd day. He climbed the stairs, wheezing, carrying his worn briefcase and 2 bags of burgers. "I thought you would need fuel," he said, leaving the food on the only table there was, an overturned plastic crate. We ate in silence. Then Davis pulled more documents from his briefcase. "Mrs. Stella, Mike, I have news, and some of it is better than I expected." We sat on the mattress like students in front of the teacher. "First, the sale of the house." Davis spread out the original papers I had signed. "It has legal vices, serious ones." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means that when you signed, you did so under emotional pressure and deceit. Valerie promised that you would live in the house forever. That was not fulfilled. Furthermore," he pointed to a small clause. "Here it says that the sale was conditional on you maintaining a lifetime right of habitation. That is legal and binding." Mike leaned forward. "So Mom still has rights to the house. Not only that, if we prove they got her out with deceit, violating the contract, we can void the entire sale. The house would return to your mother's name." I felt my heart skip a beat. "But we need witnesses," continued Davis. "People who saw how they convinced her, how they kicked her out, how they breached the agreement." "I have witnesses," I said immediately. "Carol and Ruth were with me through everything. They saw how Valerie manipulated me. Perfect. Second point, the adultery." Davis put photos of Valerie and Rod on the crate, dozens of them kissing, hugging, entering hotels. Adultery affects the division of assets, and when there is proven infidelity, the unfaithful spouse can lose rights to benefits acquired during the marriage. Mike went pale. "Does that mean Valerie could end up with nothing from the house?" "Exactly. The house was bought by you two during the marriage, but with your mother's money. If we prove fraud in the purchase and proven adultery, Valerie walks away with nothing. 0. Not a dime." I saw how Mike processed that, how his fists clenched. Third point, and this is the most grave, the fraudulent loan. Davis took out the bank contract, the $25,000 that Valerie took out in Mike's name. This is document forgery, bank fraud, identity theft. These are felonies. Valerie can go to prison for this. And Rod, I asked. Rod received that money to pay his debts. That makes him an accomplice. He can also go to prison. A heavy silence filled the room. I need you to understand something, said Davis with a serious voice. This is no longer just recovering a house. This is putting 2 people in jail. It is destroying their lives. Are you sure you want to go that far? I looked at Mike. Mike looked at me. And without hesitating, we both said at the same time, yes. Davis nodded. Then I need Mike to file the report for the fraudulent loan tomorrow. With that, we initiate the criminal process. Mike swallowed hard. Will I have to face her? Eventually, yes, in court, but you will not be alone. That night, Mike did not sleep. I heard him moving in the dark, breathing irregularly. At 4 a.m, I sat next to him. Are you afraid? I asked him. I am terrified. Me too. I took his hand. But fear is good. It means we are still alive, that we can still feel. Valerie wanted to take that from us too, but she could not. Mom, will you be able to forgive me someday? I already forgave you, son, from the moment I read your letter, because I saw that you regretted it, because I saw you were suffering as much as I was. I squeezed his hand. But now I need you to forgive yourself, and the only way to do it is to face her. The next morning, we went together to the district attorney's office. Mike carried the folder with all the evidence of the fraudulent loan. I accompanied him to the door of the office. Can you do it? I said to him. He went in. It took 2 hours. When he came out, his eyes were red, but his back was straighter than it had been in months. It is done. I filed the complaint. What did they say? That with this evidence, they are going to summon Valerie, that they will probably issue an arrest warrant. He took a deep breath. Mom, I did it. Finally, I did something right. I hugged him right there on the sidewalk, not caring about the people passing by. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Davis connected me with another lawyer, Mr. Miller, a specialist in family law and property fraud. I paid him a retainer from the few $1,000s I had left. Miller was a man of 50 with thick glasses and the attitude of a bulldog. He reviewed all the documents. He spoke with Carol and Ruth. He took statements. Mrs. Stella, he told me after 3 hours of work, your case is solid, very solid. But I need to warn you, Valerie is going to fight, and she is probably going to fight dirty. Let her fight. She does not scare me anymore. Miller smiled. I like you, ma'am. We are going to get your house back. Meanwhile, we keep investigating. And we discovered something else. Mike remembered that Valerie kept important documents in a safe inside the closet of the master bedroom, my bedroom, the one I shared with my husband for 30 years. I have the combination, Mike said. She never changed it because she probably does not even remember that I know it. What is inside, I do not know. But Valerie would check it. She took out papers, reviewed them, put them back. She acted strange, as if they were important. We needed those documents. But how to enter the house without being seen? The solution came from Carol. Neighbor, do you remember Mr. Stevens from apartment 402 across from your old house? Mr. Stevens was a 75-year-old man, a widower who lived alone with his 3 cats. I used to bring him cookies every December. He watched my garden when I went on trips. Of course I remember. Well, it turns out Mr. Stevens hates your daughter-in-law. He says she makes a racket all night with her lover, that they play music until 3 a.m, that this Rod guy parks in his spot. Mr. Stevens is fuming. A crazy idea formed in my mind. Carol, do you think Mr. Stevens would help us watch the house to tell us when Valerie leaves? Carol smiled. Neighbor, that old man would be delighted to help screw over the woman who does not let him sleep. That was how we recruited Mr. Stevens as our spy. We explained everything. We hid nothing. And when we finished, Mr. Stevens hit the table with his wrinkled fist. That woman is a snake. Since she arrived, the neighborhood has gone to hell. Of course I will help you. Tell me what you need. I need to know when Valerie and Rod leave the house, and how long they stay out. Mr. Stevens pulled out a notebook. I have their schedules written down because I am sick to death of their comings and goings. It turns out Mr. Stevens was a better detective than me. He had logs for 3 months. Valerie and Rod went out every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 in the evening. They returned past 11, 4 hours exactly. On Thursdays, they go to a bar downtown, said Mr. Stevens. I saw them come back drunk. Perfect. The following Thursday at 7:30 in the evening, Mike and I stood in front of the house. My house. Mr. Stevens had confirmed via text message. They left 15 minutes ago. You have at least 3 hours. Mike took out his keys, the ones they never asked him to return. The lock had not been changed. We went in, and what we found in that safe gave us the final weapons to destroy them. Entering my own house like a thief was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. Mike opened the door, and the smell hit me first. It no longer smelled like my home. It did not smell like the vanilla incense I burned on Sundays, nor the fresh coffee I brewed every morning, nor the fresh flowers I always had in the foyer. It smelled like expensive perfume, stale alcohol, and cigarettes. It smelled like strangers. We turned on only a small lamp. The curtains were closed, so from outside no one could see us. And then I saw what they had done with my home. The armchair where my husband proposed to me. Gone. In its place was a modern cream-colored leather sofa that cost more than 6 months of my pension. The dining table where we celebrated 20 Christmases replaced by one of cold glass and metal. The family photos that covered the walls all ripped down, substituted by soulless abstract paintings. My kitchen, my precious kitchen, where I spent 30 years cooking for my family. Now it had appliances I did not even recognize. An Italian coffee machine, a designer blender, wine glasses in an illuminated rack. But what hurt me the most was seeing the shelf where I kept my family Bible and the antique cross my mother left me. The candle I kept lit for 40 years. Nothing remained. Just an empty shelf with bottles of whiskey. Mom! Mike's voice snapped me out of the trance. We have to hurry. We went up the stairs. Every step creaked with memories. That is where Mike fell when he was 3 years old and got his first bump. That is where my husband and I sat to talk when the children were asleep. That is where I cried when the doctor told me my husband had cancer. The door to the master bedroom was ajar. Mike pushed it open, and I had to bite my lip not to scream. My bedroom where I slept with my husband for 25 years, where I prayed every night. Now it had red satin sheets, men's and women's clothes thrown on the floor, empty wine bottles on the nightstands. The smell of sex and betrayal floated in the air. The safe is in the closet, Mike said with a tense voice. He opened the sliding doors. The closet that used to hold my modest clothes was now full of designer dresses, expensive men's suits, shoes that cost more than my monthly rent. In the back behind a row of coats was the safe embedded in the wall, a small black box with a digital keypad. Mike punched in the numbers, 1508, August 15th, Mike's birthday. The irony was brutal. The box opened with a click. Inside was a leather folder, bundles of cash, and a manila envelope. Mike took everything out and put it on the bed that smelled of Valerie's perfume. First we counted the cash. $7,000 in $150 bills. Money that should have been Mike's. Stolen money. Then we opened the leather folder, and what we saw left us speechless. They were contracts, plans, a complete conspiracy documented with the meticulousness of professional criminals. The first document was a business plan handwritten by Valerie. Date: 2 months before meeting Mike. Project: acquisition, The Morales house. I read aloud, trembling, objective, acquire property in the city. Valued at $400,000 with a value projection of $1 million in 5 years. Strategy. 1. Conquer the sun. Mike Morales, 32 years old. Engineer single vulnerable post-breakup. 2. Gain trust of the mother, Stella Morales. Widow owner of the property. 3. Quick marriage. Maximum 18 months. 4. Convince the mother to sell the house. To us. 5. Remove the mother with credible pretext. Trip abroad. Need for space. 6. Strategic divorce after 2 years. Joint assets. 7. Sale of property and division of profits with RERE Rod Evans. Everything had been planned. Every smile, every hug, every Mrs. Stella, you are like the mother I never had. All lies, all theater, all a damn scam coldly calculated. Mike let the paper fall. His face was white. She chose me as a target, like a mark. I was not even a person to her. I was a job. I kept reviewing. There were more documents. A private contract between Valerie and Rod dated 6 months before the wedding, where they agreed to divide the profits of the house sale 60-40, with both their signatures, copies of printed messages where they planned every step, how to manipulate me, what to tell Mike, how to invent the Dubai story. And then I found something that froze my blood, a fake medical certificate from a psychiatrist, declaring that Mike Morales suffered from dependent personality disorder and emotionally abusive behaviors toward his wife. It was signed by a doctor who, according to a quick search on Mike's phone, had been disbarred for selling fake certificates. "This is what she was going to use if I refused the divorce," whispered Mike. "She was going to say I was crazy, that I was dangerous." The manila envelope contained photos, dozens of photos taken by private investigators, not of Valerie, of me. Photos of me buying groceries, taking the bus, entering my apartment, talking with Carol and Ruth on the street. They had watched me for months. On the back of a photo was a note written by Valerie. "The old woman is alone. No resources, no support. Represents no danger. Continue with plan. No danger." That woman had completely underestimated me. Mom, there is more. Mike took out a last document from the bottom of the safe. It was a power of attorney, signed by Mike, giving Valerie total control over all his assets, bank accounts, and properties. "I never signed this," Mike said with a broken voice. "Never in my life did I sign a power of attorney. She forged my signature, like with the loan." We took photos of everything with our cell phones, every document, every paper, every proof. We put everything back exactly as it was. We closed the safe. We checked that there was no trace of our presence. And we left that house with the final weapon we needed. The next day, mister. Miller almost jumped with excitement when we showed him the photos of the documents. "This is pure gold. With this, we destroy them legally." He took off his glasses and cleaned them frantically. "This proves premeditation, conspiracy, organized fraud. It is not just a bad divorce. It is a criminal ring." "What is next?" I asked. Miller joined his fingers in a gesture of planning. "We organize a formal confrontation. We summon them with legal pretexts and present all the evidence at once. In front of a notary or an officer, in front of witnesses. No escape." "I want to be there," I said with a firm voice. "I want to see her face when she realizes she lost." Miller smiled. "Mrs. Stella, you are not only going to be there. You are going to run the show." 2 weeks later, everything was ready. The meeting was at a neutral coffee shop downtown. Lombardia Cafe, second floor table by the window. We sent a message to Valerie from Mike's phone. "Need to talk to you." "About the divorce. We can settle it civilly. Lombardia Cafe, Tuesday, 3 p.m., please." Valerie responded immediately. "It was about time you accepted reality. I will be there." Tuesday arrived. Mike and I arrived early. With us came Mr. Miller, Mr. Davis, and a court official named Mr. Vance. We sat at a large table. We had 3 binders full of evidence, printouts of all the documents, the photos, the contracts, the messages, the fake medical certificate, everything. At 3 o'clock sharp, Valerie walked into the cafe. She looked perfect as always. Fitted black dress, red heels, Prada bag, dark glasses, hair fresh from the salon. But when she climbed the stairs and saw the table, her smile froze, because she expected to find only Mike weak and defeated. Instead, she found all of us, and in the center of the table, looking at her with eyes that no longer held fear, but pure fire, was me. "Hello, Valerie," I said with a calm voice. "Sit down, we have a lot to talk about." Valerie stood paralyzed on the stairs. Her eyes, hidden behind those expensive dark glasses, scanned the table. Mike, me, the 3 men, the binders. I saw how her brain worked at full speed, calculating, looking for exits, preparing lies. Finally, she lowered her glasses to the tip of her nose and looked at me with that rehearsed smile I knew so well. "Mrs. Stella, what a surprise." Her voice had an almost imperceptible tremor. "I did not know you were coming." "Sit down, Valerie." It was not an invitation. It was an order. She hesitated. She looked toward the staircase as if measuring if she could escape. But Mr. Vance, the court official, stood up and showed his identification. "Mr. Vance, officer of the court, I suggest you take a seat, ma'am. This is an official proceeding." The color drained from Valerie's face, but she recovered quickly. Too quickly. She sat in the chair across from us, crossed her legs, and adopted that posture of superiority she used as armor. "I do not understand what all this is. Mike told me you wanted to talk about the divorce." "Oh, we are going to talk about the divorce," intervened Mr. Miller, opening the first binder, "and about many other things. Fraud, forgery, dispossession, conspiracy. Do these terms sound familiar?" Valerie laughed, a forced, nervous laugh. "What is he talking about, Mike? What is this? Some kind of emotional blackmail because you cannot accept that I do not love you anymore?" Mike did not answer. He just looked at her with a coldness I did not know he had. It was my turn to speak. "Valerie, 3 weeks ago, I received a package. Inside was the watch I gave my son, and a letter." I put my hands on the table, clasped calm. A letter where my son told me the whole truth. I saw her jaw tense. "I do not know what letter you are talking about, ma'am. Mike has been very confused lately, stressed. In fact, I have been worried about his mental health." "His mental health?" "Mr." Davis pulled out the fake medical certificate and threw it on the table. "Do you refer to this fake certificate that you fabricated with a disbarred doctor? This same one you plan to use to declare him mentally incompetent?" Valerie went pale. I do not know where you got that." "From your safe," I said quietly. "The one you have in the closet of my bedroom." "In my house. Combination 1508. Her eyes opened wide. "We also found this." Miller put on the table the printed photos of the Project Acquisition Morales house, the plan written in Valerie's own handwriting, with dates, with strategies, with everything. Valerie looked at the documents, and for the first time I saw real fear in her eyes. That is private. You entered my property illegally." "My property?" I corrected with a voice of ice. "The house is still legally mine. Mike never deeded it to you in a divorce because you are still married. And it turns out the sales contract had a life estate clause that you violated. So technically, dear Valerie, the house is still mine." That cannot be legal." "It is completely legal," intervened Miller, "and we have 3 witnesses who declare that you manipulated Mrs. Stella to sign under deceit, that you promised one thing and delivered another. That voids the sales contract." Mr. Davis opened the second binder. "Then we have this. 53 photos of you and Mr. Rod Evans in compromising situations, dated from 4 months before your wedding to Mike. He threw the photos on the table like playing cards. Valerie and Rod kissing, hugging, leaving hotels one after another. "Proven adultery," said Davis with satisfaction. "And under the terms of the fraud we are establishing, this helps nullify any claim to marital assets." Valerie stood up abruptly. "This is a setup. Those photos are edited." "Sit down," ordered Mr. Vance with a voice of authority, "or face arrest for contempt." Valerie sat back down, but now she was trembling. And finally, Mr. Miller opened the third binder. "We have the bank loan of $25,000. Requested with forged documents in the name of my client, Mike Morales, with his forged signature." He put the bank contract next to samples of Mike's real signature. The differences were obvious. "This is document forgery, wire fraud, identity theft. Federal crimes that carry 3 to 12 years in prison. I did not. Mike signed that. Valerie could no longer keep her composure. The perfect makeup could not hide the panic. "I never signed that," Mike finally said with a calm and lethal voice. "You forged it. Like you forged the power of attorney. Like you forged the medical certificate. Like you forged our entire life together." "You loved me," screamed Valerie, losing all composure. "You begged me to marry you. All this is because you cannot accept that I do not love you anymore." "No." Mike leaned forward. "You never loved me. I was a job to you, a target. Project acquisition. Does it ring a bell?" Valerie opened her mouth, but nothing came out, and then the door of the cafe opened. Rod Evans walked up the stairs with that arrogance that only men who think they will never be caught have. 3-piece gray suit, Rolex watch, hair slicked back, shark smile. "Babe, what is taking so long? We have a reservation at..." He stopped when he saw the scene. His smile vanished. "Mr. Evans?" Mr. Vance stood up. "How timely. We also have questions for you." "Me, I do not know what you are talking about. I just came to pick up your accomplice." Davis put the private contract between Valerie and Rod on the table, the one that divided the profits of my house sale 60-40. "This contract bears your signature, Mr. Evans, and your thumbprint. Or are you also going to say it is fake?" Rod looked at Valerie. Valerie looked at Rod. And in that exchange of glances, I saw how both understood they were trapped. Rod tried to leave. "If you take one more step," said Mr. Vance, "I will issue an order for immediate arrest. There is already a criminal complaint against you for complicity in bank fraud." Rod froze. "Sit down, Mr. Evans," I ordered. And I was surprised by the authority in my own voice. Rod, the man who laughed in my son's face, who called him champ with mockery, who slept in my house as if it were his, sat down. I took control of the conversation. I stood up. I looked at them both from above. "Valerie Montero, Rod Evans, for 2 years you made me your victim. You got me out of my house with lies. You took my son from me. You gave me scraps while you lived like kings in my home. You watched me like a criminal. You underestimated me because you thought a 67-year-old woman was too old, too stupid, too weak to defend herself." I walked around the table. Valerie could not look at me. "But you made a mistake, a huge mistake." I stopped in front of them. "You touched my son, and there is nothing more dangerous in this world than a mother defending her child." The cafe was in complete silence. Even the waiters had stopped moving. "Now you are going to listen to what comes next." My voice was calm, cold, relentless. "Mike is going to divorce you, Valerie. You are not going to receive a single dollar. Not from the house, not from anything. 0. The house is going to return to my name because the sales contract is void. I already spoke with 3 notaries who confirmed I have solid legal grounds. You are going to pay back the loan of $25,000 that you took out fraudulently, every penny with interest. And both of you, I pointed at them with my finger, are going to face criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Valerie finally burst into tears, but they were not tears of repentance. They were tears of impotent rage. It is not fair. I worked for that house. I deserve it. You worked. My voice rose for the first time. You worked. I worked 30 years in that house. I built it brick by brick with my husband. I raised my children there. I buried my husband and kept fighting to keep it. And you arrived with your lies and your manipulations and believed you could steal my entire life. I leaned down until I was at her level. You wanted everything, and you are going to end up with nothing. Rod tried to stand up. This is ridiculous. Let's go, Valerie. You are not going anywhere until you sign. Mr. Miller put 2 documents on the table. 1. Acknowledgement of debt for the $25,000 of the fraudulent loan. 2. Voluntary waiver of any right over the property. Sign now, or Mr. Vance arrests you for fraud in flagrante. And if we do not sign... Rod tried to look threatening. Vance pulled a pair of handcuffs from his briefcase and put them on the table. Then we all go to the police station. And believe me, Mr. Evans, with your history, you are not getting out on bail. Valerie looked at the documents. She looked at the binders with evidence. She looked at my immutable face. And she signed. Rod signed after muttering curses. One more thing, I said when they finished. You have 1 week to vacate my house. If you leave a single scratch, a single broken thing, I sue you for damages. Understood. Valerie looked at me with pure hate. This does not end here. You are right. I smiled without humor, because the criminal process is just beginning. See you in court, Valerie. They stood up. Rod tried to look dignified, but only managed to look pathetic. Valerie was crying uncontrollably, her makeup running her perfection destroyed. When they left the cafe, Mr. Miller shook my hand. Mrs. Stella, it was an honor to witness this. But I barely heard, because I looked at Mike and my son had tears running down his face. Mom, you did it. You really did it. We did it, son, both of us together. We hugged there in that cafe, surrounded by lawyers and evidence and justice, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt I could breathe. The legal process took 4 months. 4 months that I lived with my stomach in a knot, but with my head held high. Valerie hired an expensive lawyer, a guy with a fancy office and a snake smile who tried to paint me as a resentful old woman, inventing stories to recover a property she sold voluntarily. He tried to discredit the photos. He said the documents in the safe had been planted, that everything was a conspiracy by Mike because he could not get over the abandonment, but he could not win against the evidence. The judge, a man of 60 with a face of having seen too many lies in his life, reviewed every document. He listened to Carol and Ruth testify. He listened to Mr. Stevens describe the schedules of Valerie and Rod. He listened to my old lawyer explain how he himself warned me not to sell, but that Valerie had pressured to close the deal fast, and he ruled in our favor. In everything. The divorce was granted. Valerie lost any right to marital assets. The sale of the house was annulled due to vices in consent and violation of contract clauses. The property returned to my name. And the best part, Valerie and Rod were prosecuted for bank fraud. The criminal trial took another 2 months, but in the end, both were sentenced. Rod, 4 years in prison. Valerie, 3 years with an option for sentence reduction if she paid the entirety of the fraudulent loan. The day I read the sentence, I did not feel joy. I felt something deeper. Peace. Justice. Closure. But the best day was when I got the keys to my house back. It was a Tuesday in November. The sky was gray and threatened rain. Mike and I stood in front of the main door. I held the set of keys the notary had handed me that morning. "Ready, Mom?" asked Mike. "Ready?" I opened the door. Valerie and Rod had moved out a week earlier. The court officer who supervised the eviction told me that Valerie cried the whole time that Rod tried to take things that were not his and had to be warned twice that both left in a taxi because Rod's luxury car had been repossessed by the bank. We went in. The house was empty but intact. They had taken all their modern furniture, their abstract paintings, their luxury appliances, but they left the structure complete. The walls were clean. The floors freshly mopped, the windows closed. It was as if the house had been waiting for me. I walked through every room, the living room where we celebrated birthdays, the dining room where we ate dinner on Christmas, the kitchen where my husband stole kisses from me while I cooked, the bedroom where we slept for 30 years, empty of furniture but full of memories. Mike found me in the kitchen looking out the window at the garden that had grown wild in my absence. I am going to fix everything, Mom. I promise this house is going to be like before. No, I stopped him. Not like before. Better. The following 3 months were of reconstruction, literal and figurative. With the money we recovered from the fraudulent loan Valerie had to sell her car and jewelry to pay, we bought new furniture. Nothing ostentatious, simple, comfortable furniture that smelled of home and not pretension. Carol and Ruth helped me choose curtains. Mr. Stevens gave me plants for the garden. Mike hired a painter and we painted the walls warm colors. Soft yellow in the living room, mint green in the kitchen, sky blue in the bedrooms. I installed my altar again. I put the family photos back on the walls. I recovered my mother's dishes from storage, the ones Valerie had relegated. Little by little, the house breathed again. But the most beautiful change was in Mike. My son moved in with me, but this time with healthy boundaries. He took the guest bedroom. He respected my space. He consulted me on decisions. He got up early. He looked for work in his profession. He attended therapy to heal the trauma of the manipulation. "I am not going to fail you again, Mom," he told me one night while we ate dinner together. I had made pot roast his favorite. "And I am not going to fail myself again. Son, we all fail. The important thing is to get up." 6 months after recovering the house, Mike got a job at an engineering firm. It was not the highest position, but it was honest. He earned a decent salary and was proud of every dollar he earned with his own effort. And he met Patty. Patty was a coworker, a woman of 35, an engineer like him, divorced with no children, with a contagious laugh and zero pretensions. The first time he brought her to the house, she arrived with an apple pie she had made herself and a genuine smile. "Mrs. Stella, Mike has told me so much about you. It is a pleasure to meet you." I observed her while we ate, how she treated Mike with respect but without flattery, how she asked me questions without being invasive, how she offered to help with the dishes without being asked. When she left, Mike asked me nervously, "What do you think of her?" "I think she has good manners, a good heart, and that you look at her like you have not looked at anyone in years." Mike smiled, and it was the first real smile I had seen on him in a long time. But the story still had one pending chapter. One afternoon in March, 8 months after the sentence, someone knocked on my door. I opened it. It was